Welcome to ClickMyProject.com. Now we are going to discuss about the project Blind Text Image Deblurring Algorithm based on multi-scale fusion and sparse prayers using Matlab. Now we are going to discuss about the abstract of the process. Blind image restoration is an used in the prior information of an image can often be used to restore the sharpness of the edges. Deblurring is the process of removing the blur artifacts from images such as blur caused by the defocus, aberrations or motions blurs. Hence, in this process we have two kinds of blurs, which is the Gaussian blur and motion blur is included, and it will be removed based on the blur removal method, and then the image will be classified. Motion blur is an apparent striking of rapidly moving objects in the still image. The Gaussian blur is the result of blurring by the Gaussian functions. Hence, in this process we are applying these two blurriness as well as we have removing these two blurriness, and then it will recognize the signboard, and then it will gives the results as an signboard formats. The success of recent signal image methods partially stems from the use of various sparse prayers for each latent images or motion blur kernels. Finally, in this process we have included the classification also. It will give the more and more efficient to this project. Then finally the performance of the classification will be evaluated. Now we are going to discuss about the flow diagram of the process. This is the overall working flow of this project. This project consists the modules such as the input image, pre-processing, blur removal, then classification, finally the performance estimation. In this blur removal also we have two kinds of stages will be there. One is blur addition and then the one is blur removal. At first, the input image is taken from the dataset. The dataset consists of various signboards, which is consequently the RGB images. We have to select any one image from the dataset. After the selection of the image from the dataset, the pre-processing will be carried out. In this pre-processing, we have two kinds of pre-processing stages will be there. One is belongs to the image resize, then the another one is belongs to the channel separation. The resize purpose is to detect whether the sizes will be the appropriate or not. In case of size is too much of large, in the sense it will take too much of time to the execution. That's why we just maintain the size of the image appropriately. After doing the image resize, the channel separation will be carried out. In this channel separation, basically the RGB bands having the three kinds of channels belongs to the red, green and blue. So we have to extract the red, green, blue channel separately in the pre-processing stage itself. Then we have to add the blur additions in that images. So already we have discussed we have two kinds of blurs in that. One is belongs to the motion blur, then the another one is belongs to the Gaussian blur. So we have to add the motion blur and then the Gaussian blur to the image manually. So after that we have to remove the blur by using the filtering and wavelets method. After the blur removal, the blur part will be completely removed. After doing the blur removal part, the classification will be carried out. In this classification stage we have to detect the signboards. So for example, whatever the signboard may be it is, so whether it is belongs to the 30 km speed, 50 km speed or 80 km speed, whatever it is, so the classification model should be able to recognize which signboard is there. So here we are using the machine learning classification to detect whether the signboard recognitions. After doing the classification, in case if the signboard is 30 km speed, in the sense the alert box will be displayed. So the alert should be both in the text as well as the voice format. In the text format it will display as a 30 km speed. In the voice format it will display as a 30 km speed. Likewise it will give the two kinds of alerts will be there. So finally the performance will be evaluated based on the PSNR, MSC and time, or else the classification, in the sense the classification performance will be evaluated based on the accuracy, sensitivity and specificity. Now we are going to discuss about the running procedure of the process. At first open the Matlab 2019b and then change the current directory. If you want to execute the process, just right click in the main.m file and select the option run. Now the user interface will be open like this. So these are the user interface we have designed. So first of all, we have to click the button read image. After clicking the button read image, the data set will be open. In that data set you can see the images here. So first of all, we have to select the image from the data set. Once we have selected the image from the dataset, the corresponding image will be shown in the axis 1 with the title of input image. After that, we have to click the button resize. Now the options will be enabled here. So we have to click the 256 cross 256, which means the number of row will be the 256, number of column will be the 256. So first of all, we have to resize the images. Then in the pre-processing stage itself, we have to separate the channels. Already we have discussed color image having the 3 bands. One is belongs to the red, then the another one is belongs to the green, and then the another one is belongs to the blue. So you can see the pixel difference between the red, green and blue channels here. After doing this one, the blur image will be created based on the Gaussian blur. So here the Gaussian blur image will be displayed here. Dimension and sigma portions, everything will be displayed here. Now the motion blur will be displayed here. So you can see the difference between the Gaussian blur and then the motion blur here. After applying the Gaussian blur and the motion blur, we have to click the button next button. So once you have clicked the next button, in the sense the new user interface will be open. Yeah, now the new user interface will be open. Now we have to click the button deblur, then remove the Gaussian blurring. So once you click the button deblur and removing the Gaussian blurring, the background process will be started. It will take some time to the executions. After doing the blur removal, the results will be shown here. Now the results will be shown here. Now the blur removed result will be shown here. Then the initial and final PSNR will be shown here, as well as the mean square error rate will be shown here. This is belongs to the mean PSNR and MSC for the red channel alone. This is belongs to the green channel, then this is belongs to the blue channel. Now similar to the deblur of Gaussian blur, we have to do the motion blur also. After doing the motion blur estimation and removal, the motion blur removal image is shown here, as well as the results of the PSNR and the MSC will be shown here. Now the blur removed image will be shown here. After doing the blur removal everything, we have to do the classification also. So once you click the button classification, it will show the result as 30 km speed. After doing the classification everything, the performance will be evaluated. So the performance like accuracy, sensitivity and specificity will be evaluated. Along with that, these are also the performance, PSNR and MSC also the performance. The classification performances, accuracy, sensitivity and specificity.